Avril Haines, who's here with me, is the Director of National Intelligence. We're seeing the CIA, FBI, National Reconnaissance Organization, and all the 18 agencies under her wing. She is truly a modern Renaissance woman. With a first degree in physics from the University of Chicago, a law degree from Georgetown, and experience as a judo fighter, a car mechanic, an apprentice pilot, the owner of an avant-garde bookstore, and then in government as an appellate law clerk, State Department official, a member of the White House Counsel's Office, Deputy Director of the CIA, Deputy National Security Advisor, and now Director of National Intelligence. So welcome to DNI Haines. So DNI Haines, on this topic of life out there, you issued an extraordinary preliminary assessment in June on unidentified aerial phenomena, is the new term of art. To summarize that report, you studied 144 reports from U.S. government sources. 80 had multiple sensors that had made the identifications. In 18 of these instances, observers, I'm quoting, reported unusual UAP flight characteristics. You sorted these into 5 different bins. The last call just other. I want to ask you to share with the audience your takeaway after the completion of that report and what your own view is as you look at the evidence.
Yeah, I mean, I think the bottom line is that we don't understand everything that we're seeing, and that's probably not surprising to anybody in many respects. But it was a report that really, Congress asked us to produce a report that assessed what we saw as the threat, essentially, from unidentified aerial phenomena, and what our sort of best understanding was of the different reports that we had identified. And it stretched over from, I think, 2004 through to 2021, the different reports that you indicated, 144 of them. And we had different categories, as you said. So one of them was airborne clutter, another was natural phenomenon, another was foreign adversaries, a fourth one was related to sort of US government or industry developmental programs, and then the fifth one was other. And that basically indicated that we were pretty sure we weren't going to be able to characterize every single one of these reports in the various categories that we'd identified because, frankly, we were not able to understand everything about it. And a large portion of that is based on the fact that we don't have a consistent way of reporting this information. We need to integrate, frankly, a lot of data that we get. We need to get better at collecting information that's useful to us from different sensors that are available to us. And we have to deepen our analysis in these areas. And that's something that, frankly, probably also doesn't surprise you in the sense that that's how we typically approach our intelligence work. And the main issues that Congress and others have been concerned about are basically safety of flight concerns and counterintelligence issues. But of course, there's always the question of, is there something else that we simply do not understand that might come extraterrestrially?
So let me just ask a follow-up question. I'd love to hear your comments about what the tradecraft of UAP detection is. How we'll know what we know. How would we know if we were being observed, for example? That's, I find, a question people pose to me often in the weeks before this session. What is the tradecraft?
Well, the tradecraft isn't any different for unidentified aerial phenomenon than it is for the rest of our work in the intelligence community, which is to say that, we do our work very much as I was indicating. We sort of, collect all of the information we can through a variety of different sensors. People are reporting things, we're picking up things technically, we're doing a variety of work to try to understand what it is that we're seeing. We are then taking other information that we have to determine, is it something that we know about in that area? Is there some other reporting that we might not normally think of as being connected? And then we do our analysis as we normally would to sort of say, okay, put it into context. What are the likely possible options? How do we characterize it, bucket it, and think about it? all of that is sort of the standard way in which you work. But it doesn't mean that that we are definitely going to be able to tell if we're being observed under the circumstances. I mean, I think there's a lot of different ways in which that might be revealed, but certainly we're working to make sure that we understand what we do see and what phenomenon is identified, and otherwise we're going to have to wait for Bill's science work, I think, to actually reveal some of these additional possibilities, not to mention some of the other people that I think you'll talk to later today.
So let's turn back to Bill, who discusses that in his other remarks. Matt, let's roll the next clip from Senator Nelson. Senator Nelson, the Artemis program is scheduled to return humans to the moon by 2024. What do you hope to accomplish as we return to the moon, and how does this pertain to our hopes to visit Mars?
Well, right off the bat, we are going to land the first woman and then the first person of color. Artemis, by the way, in Greek mythology, is the sister of Apollo. Apollo was over half a century ago. This now is the Artemis generation. That's the first thing we're going to do. But we're going back to the moon to try to learn what all we need to do to sustain human life under very adverse and hostile conditions as we get ready to go to the planet Mars. And when we go to Mars, we're going to continue this search of understanding who we are, where we came from, and what was before us, and may be foretelling of what is the future. I think establishing colonies on the moon is the preparation that we need to go to Mars, because the moon is only 250,000 miles away. We can get there in 3 or 4 days and get back in 3 or 4 days, a relatively short trip, and we showed that we could do that back in the Apollo program. Mars is a different story. Mars, you got to get the planets aligned correctly to have the shortest distance, and unless you go there real fast with new propulsion technologies, which we are developing but not developed yet, unless you can sprint there in, say, 40 days, if it takes you 8-10 months to get there, you're going to have to stay on the surface for quite a while in order for the planets to realign to be able to get back in that period of time. So we're going to the moon to learn what we need to do as humans to survive when we go millions and millions of miles out to the planet Mars.
So, Matt, a final question for Senator Nelson. Senator Nelson, last question. What's the coolest thing about NASA that we don't know about?
Well, it's classified.
Good answer.
No, I'll tell you one example that you don't know about, but it is really neat. If any of you saw, a couple of decades ago, the hit movie Armageddon with Bruce Willis, there's an asteroid in the movie that's headed to Earth that will destroy Earth. And so they send a crew. I mean, it was big time fiction because they sent in the movie a space shuttle up there, which you can't do. And then, of all things, they used a nuclear weapon to move it out of its path. We're doing this real time come December. It is a mission called DART. And it's going to an asteroid that is orbiting an asteroid. And we're not going to hit the big asteroid. We're going to hit the little asteroid But oh, by the way, the little asteroid is the size of 1/4 of a mile in diameter. And we're going to hit it with a probe at 16,000 miles an hour. And then we're going to watch it in our telescopes. Did it move it ever so slightly in its orbit around the other asteroid? And if that's successful, what it will tell us is if we did detect an inbound asteroid that could threaten our existence as a planet, that then we could send a probe, and that probe would ever so slightly change its trajectory. The further out that you can get that hit, the better chance of changing that trajectory so that it misses planet Earth.